What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. After an exciting week last week, this week has been relatively boring in terms of Apple software, as we did not get anything new. However, on the news and rumor side of things, we got a lot of exciting news that I cannot wait to share with you guys. So in this episode, we're going to talk about iOS 15.5 Beta 1 and how it's been running for me and also for you guys, along with when to expect the next beta and the next public release. And after that, we're going to discuss the latest leaks and rumors surrounding iOS 16 and watchOS 9, why Apple is working on 9 different Macs at the moment. Yes, you heard that right, 9 different Macs. Why Apple blatantly called out Facebook, and much more. And if you guys want to stay updated with all things Apple, make sure to click that subscribe button down below so you don't miss next weekend's episode. All right, so as always, let's start off with the software side of things and iOS 15.5 Beta 1. So as you guys know, this update is relatively boring, at least this first beta is. There's a lot of features and changes hidden in the code and not actually on the front end of 15.5 Beta 1. So one of the main ones, of course, is the Apple Classical application. This is going to be a standalone application from Apple for classical music. So we have references to that in the code, but we don't have the application here on 15.5 just yet. So we should see that near the end of the beta cycle, maybe even just at the time of the final release of 15.5. But also, a lot of people are noticing some improvements to the animations in third-party applications on the iPhone 13 Pro series. So those 120 Hz animations seem to be smoother for some of you guys. I've not noticed any difference in the animations in third-party applications or first-party applications or even anything on the home screen, but some of you guys seem to think that the animations are better on 15.5 Beta 1. I did also want to touch on one of the changes in the home application. So if we go to the home application and go to one of our home pods right here, if we long press on that and then go down all the way down to the bottom here, you'll see that we have Wi-Fi network, and next to our Wi-Fi network, it shows what I thought were actual bars for the Wi-Fi, and it would actually show you your connectivity. But it turns out it doesn't actually show your connectivity. That is just simply a Wi-Fi icon. It's not actually going to show you the status of your Wi-Fi connection in real time, which is unfortunate because I noticed that I was really far away from my router and nothing changed there. So that leads me to believe that's just a glyph icon for Wi-Fi there, and it's not actually moving. It doesn't actually, change the bars there, at least not in Beta 1. There's also a bug with the Shazam music history. So if you have the Shazam toggle in your control center and you haptic press on that, you can see the history right here. I had history before updating to 15.5 Beta 1, but now it is gone. So I hope my history comes back in Beta 2. I hope it's not gone forever, but some of you guys mentioned this to me and I have this bug as well where my music history is just simply gone. Oh, and while we're talking about music, I did also want to mention that the gapless playback on Apple Music has also been fixed with Beta 5. So I know a lot of people had issues with gapless playback, especially if you have music downloaded to your phone. That was a big issue on 15.4 and 15.4.1, and apparently that has been fixed here with 15.5 Beta 1. And then I mentioned this last week, but I did want to bring it up again because I had a good experience with it last week. So the Friday Night Baseball segment here in Apple TV Plus, which is where you can watch 2 free MLB games every single Friday night. It's cool. The experience was great. All the stats you could see and just a really good flawless stream from your iPhone where you can AirPlay it to your TV. It's really nice and convenient. This isn't anything new, but it is nice to have it here with Apple TV Plus for a good price. And also it's very easily accessible. Now, I do wish that you could select your home team and watch your home team every Friday night if they play on Friday nights. That would be cool, but for right now, you just get 2 random games every Friday night. But still, I think it's cool if you are a baseball fan. Now, as far as the performance goes, I don't really have any issues in this update relating to performance. I don't really have any lockups. I don't have any issues with multitasking or any apps freezing or anything like that. And I have not seen any of you guys in the comments or on social media reporting any issues either. And as I said in last week's episode, it feels pretty much identical to 15.4.1 to me. So I would expect performance to improve as the betas go on, but don't expect anything major. I would not expect a big boost in performance from 15.4.1. I think the performance is going to stay about the same unless you did have issues on 15.4.1. Those may get solved with 15.5, but don't expect anything major with this update in terms of performance. And the same goes for battery life. I mean, it's the same story all around. I think 15.5 definitely did fix the battery drain bug that affected many people on iOS 15.4, just like 15.4.1 did. But as far as any issues with battery life, there's nothing to complain about here, and I've not seen any of you guys complaining about battery life either. So now let's move on to what is next for Apple. So last week I said that Apple is going to skip a week and not release beta 2 until the week of the 18th, and it looks like that prediction is going to be spot on. So I would expect to see beta 2 on the week of the 18th, most likely on the 19th, since Apple does love those Tuesday releases, but it could come really anywhere on the week of the 18th. I would expect it from the 18th through the 20th though. And then after beta 2 gets released, we could switch over to a weekly beta cycle. It's going to depend on what that build number is in beta 2, but we do know the final release of 15.5 is going to come around WWDC time, which is down here on June 6th. So we probably should see a release of 15.5 probably the last week of May, maybe even into early June. Now, I do also think that we could see an iOS 15.4.2 very soon to fix some additional bugs and security vulnerabilities. So we may see that in maybe the week of the 25th right here, maybe the last week of April into early May, I think is a very good likelihood of seeing a 15.4.2. But at this point, I think you guys are all just hyped to see iOS 16 beta 1 down here on June 6th. As am I. I cannot wait for that. And don't forget, I will be live streaming that event. I really want you guys to be there for that live stream. I will be doing giveaways and things like that as well. So stay tuned. All right, so now let's move on to my favorite segment, the Apple News segment. So let's start things off with a brand new report about iOS 16. So this time it's from Mark Gurman, who shared some details on the upcoming iOS and watchOS software. And spoiler alert, my iOS 16 leaks and rumors video from a few weeks ago was right on. And Gurman basically just reiterated what I reported in that video. So he starts off by mentioning that iOS 16 is full of references to Apple's upcoming AR/VR headsets as expected, and then he moves on to mentioning the features that we touched on a few weeks ago, starting with notification. So he says this: on the iOS side, I'm looking for some fairly significant enhancements across the board, including an update to notifications and new health tracking features. I'm not expecting an end-to-end redesign of iOS's interface, even though it hasn't changed much since iOS 7 nearly a decade ago, but there might be a new iPadOS multitasking interface. And Gurman is likely referencing the Stacks feature for iPadOS that we mentioned a few weeks ago in my leaks video, so that's likely what he's mentioning when he talks about iPadOS multitasking. And then he continues by talking about the Apple Watch that he says may get major upgrades to activity and health tracking. And speaking of health, Gurman also said this about the Health app in iOS 16. An updated version of the Health app on the iPhone is expected to add expanded sleep tracking functionality, medicine management, and new women's health features. Apple has been working on a medicine management tool that will let users scan their pill bottles into the app. The software will monitor adherence and remind users to take their medication, but the initial version of this feature for this year is unlikely to include all of the planned functionality. So basically Apple being Apple and mentioning a feature and then not unveiling it until months after iOS 16 releases. But nonetheless, it's great to hear that Gurman is also expecting some fairly significant enhancements to come in iOS 16, and that gets me even more hyped for this update, which I think a lot of people are really just hating on for no reason at this point. I'm also pretty excited for the upcoming Apple Watch features that Gurman talked about in a separate report. So he says that the upcoming Apple Watch Series 8 could get a body temperature sensor, but it won't actually tell you the temperature of your body. It's just going to provide precise measurements. And the reason for this is because initially, this feature is going to be aimed at women to help them with fertility planning. So the future versions are going to be able to determine if a user has a higher than normal body temperature, but at first, it's not going to have all of that functionality. We also hear that watchOS 9 is going to bring a new low power mode that will allow you to still use parts of the watch while extending battery life, improved AFib detection, more pre-selectable workouts and additional metrics, and possibly even satellite connectivity like on the iPhone 14. He says, quote, "The company is also working to eventually bring satellite connectivity to the Apple Watch, setting the stage for emergency texting and SOS response features. It's planning to release those capabilities on iPhone as early as this year. The technology would allow users to send text messages to emergency personnel over satellite networks and report incidents." So yeah, both iOS 16 and watchOS 9 seem to be bringing plenty of new features to our devices, but I'm sure we'll hear more about those features as we get closer to WWDC. Now, speaking of WWDC, we're almost certainly getting new hardware at this event at this point. I mean, we don't get it every year. You know, WWDC is known as a software event, but we do get hardware every few years. And this year, It seems, super likely that we're getting hardware. And now we're thinking it could be even as many as 2 new Macs at this event. We could possibly be seeing the new Mac Pro, the Studio Display Pro, and the new MacBook Air. That would be quite the Worldwide Developers Conference. But hold up, there's another Mac in the mix as well, and that is the Mac Mini. So Steve Troughton-Smith tweeted this out earlier this week. The rumor mill is a little unclear as to what new Macs are imminent. For what it's worth, there is one concrete clue. The shipping Studio Display firmware references one accounted for mystery machine, a new model generation of Mac Mini. My guess, M2. Not M1 Pro. So this is super interesting and gives us some suspense as to what is coming first, and maybe even we'll see both of those at this Worldwide Developers Conference, who knows? But you want things to get even more confusing with the upcoming Macs? I got you. Apple is reportedly testing at least 9 Macs with 4 different M2 chip variants. Yes, you heard that right. Apple is working on devices with M2 chips, M2 Pro chips, M2 Max chips, and M2 Ultra chips. So these are the Macs currently in the works. We have a MacBook Air with an M2 chip that will feature an 8-core CPU and a 10-core GPU, a Mac Mini with the M2 chip and a variant of the M2 Pro chip, an entry-level 13-inch MacBook Pro with the M2 chip, 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro models with M2 Pro and M2 Max chips. The M2 Max chip, by the way, is going to feature a 12-core GPU and 38-core GPU, along with 64 gigabytes of RAM. And then the new Mac Pro that's going to have a successor to the M1 Ultra chip that was used in the Mac Studio, most likely going to be called the M2 Ultra. So yeah, are you confused yet? Because I am, and I think that anything could happen, and I cannot wait to see really all of these new Macs come out over the next couple of months to the next several months, but it's going to be really interesting to see what we get at the Worldwide Developers Conference, because at this point, really anything could come. All right, so let's shift away from the future and talk about the now. So Apple just recently announced the winners for their Shot on iPhone Macro Challenge, and the 10 winners photos are going to be displayed on apple.com and on billboards in select cities. So these are the 10 winners and the 10 pictures, and they are unreal. I mean, I thought about entering this contest, but now I'm glad I didn't, because I never stood a chance. I mean, these are some incredible shots. So congrats to the winners. That's awesome. And I love that Apple does different challenges like this still to this day. And then finally, let's talk about Apple calling out Meta, aka Facebook. So you guys know how Meta has been openly critical of Apple taking a 30% cut from the App Store sales. Well, they just recently announced that they're going to be taking close to a 50% cut from Metaverse sales, and Apple has called them out for this. Apple spokesman Fred Sains said this, quote, Meta has repeatedly taken aim at Apple for charging developers a 30% commission for in-app purchases in the App Store, and have used small businesses and creators as a scapegoat at every turn. Now, Meta seeks to charge those same creators significantly more than any other platform. Meta's announcement lays bare Meta's hypocrisy. It goes to show that while they seek to use Apple's platform for free, they happily take from the creators and small businesses that use their own. Yikes. So whether you're a fan of Apple or not, I think we can all agree that this is not a good look for Meta, and Apple spokesman Fred Sains was actually in the right for saying this, I think, because 50% is just nuts. But anyways, guys, there you have it. That is the latest batch of Apple news from this past week, along with some additional info on iOS 15.5 and of course the upcoming iOS 16. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, I would appreciate if you give it a thumbs up, and also make sure to subscribe so you don't miss next weekend's episode. If you have anything at all to add, if you have anything to talk about with 15.5 or any news or anything, any thoughts you have about this video overall, I would appreciate if you left those in the comments down below. I love having conversations with you guys down there in the comments. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.